All right. We have had a whole bunch of people at Barbell Logic hit their 1,000th workout, which is quite an accomplishment. It takes years. And I want to shout out to those people, give them some acknowledgement to them and their coaches for making it this far, putting in God knows how many reps that's been, but it's not easy. It's not easy. Right. Our first BL1K that I'm going to announce today is Joseph Mararick, who's coached by Caleb. Joseph, I'm so sorry if I totally butchered that. But in the words of his coach, Caleb, he says, Joseph has been training with us since the very beginning of our days. He lives in Ireland in a house that he and his girlfriend just bought. Despite having a physically strenuous job, he always finds the time to train and do extra projects like home renovations. That is not easy. Like if you have to jackhammer a floor out and then go bench press, arms are going to be feeling things. So nice job, Joseph. He has even manufactured a few pieces of his own gym equipment, including a custom set of dumbbells he welded in a loadable log. Man, that's really awesome. That is definitely a sign of you being in training for the long haul. Nice job, Joseph. Good job on hitting 1,000. That's really rad. All right. And we have Cherise Bova. Really, she is personally someone who I've really enjoyed watching lift because she is incredibly strong. She's coached by Becca Creek. Becca says, Cherise will light up a room without saying a word. All it takes is a smile or a deadlift. It's true. She is a beast, not only for her physical strength, but also for her fury of encouragement that she dishes out to you if you have the privilege to train with her. Becca says, congrats to my original swole sister. Let's get 1,000 more. That is awesome. Yeah, I got to see Cherise compete at USSF Nationals a couple years ago, and man, I wanted to immediately go and deadlift. She is really, really, really fun to watch. Awesome. Congratulations, Becca and Cherise. That's fantastic. All right, now we have Chaitanya, who is coached by Carl Schute. Carl says he's been a fantastic client. Look at his waist numbers over the years. So just a little side note, you can, if you're getting nutrition coaching as well, every one of your nutrition check-ins counts towards your journey towards this award, towards your BL1K, your 1,000 workouts. So Chaitanya and Carl have been working together a long time at this, and Carl says it's a fantastic graph. He's become very strong at the same time, deadlifting over 500 pounds. That is awesome in the presence of weight loss. We've worked through some injuries. He is very flexible and occasionally has joint troubles, and he's just gotten stronger and stronger. I'm very proud of him. Might be my best client. Wow, certainly my best nutrition client. Very nice job. That is quite an honor. I think it takes a special person to be really successful at nutrition, so well done. We have Larry Thomas, also coached by Becca. Larry Thomas and his wife, Shannon, were original block gangsters. They signed up with us on day one and started working with Becca in December of 2016. That's awesome. Larry is an engineer with contagious positivity and has been on a tremendous transformation journey in both strength and health. He is an Alabama Crimson Tide fan who will complete his sets of presses or bench even if his cat jumps on him during. It's amazing. There's apparently video evidence of this. I love it. So Becca is so proud of your grit and consistency and says big congratulations. Agreed. That's amazing, Larry. Oh, I remember this name. Andrew Johnson Lally with Anna Marie. I remember this name for ages and ages. This is great. He was Anna Marie's first block client and has been with her ever since. Anne Marie says Andrew is super consistent and goes the extra mile when he does his workouts and does his video check-ins. So we get to have conversations regularly through video. That's awesome. I follow him on Instagram, actually. He's a fantastic tattoo artist, husband, and dad, as well as being super strong. Very cool. Congratulations, Andrew. That's huge. I love it. We have, Matthew Sutter. Matthew Sutter is coached in strength by Michael Burgos and in nutrition by Brittany Snyder. And Burgos says, Matt is an incredible guy. He's a physician. He served as the public health director for his county during the pandemic. That's amazing. He was on his SWAT team for a while even, and he trains jiu-jitsu. Man, Matthew Sutter, what a boss. He manages this while being a good partner and present father and successfully barbell trains consistently during all of those roles. Outstanding dude, for sure. And from Brittany, she says we put some really impactful boundaries around intake that he's been able to maintain long term. Even when he goes away on travel or work demands creep up, he always returns back to the plan and gets on top of it immediately. That's really cool. It sounds like you're able to be disciplined when you need to be and make the right choices, which is really hard when you have such high stress demands in your field. So really cool, Matthew. That's awesome. Ooh, and we have Ken Sheen. I've seen Ken in the Block family for years, and I remember him. He's now coached by Nikki Berman. Nikki says he is such a hardworking client, busy working dad, but makes time to get his training done. He focuses really hard on everything I say and is also super consistent with his nutrition. Even with all the obstacles life continues to throw at him, he gets the job done. Really amazing, Ken. I've always appreciated how active you are in the community, how much you care about your training, you care about what your coach says, you're not afraid to ask questions, and I can just tell you're super invested in what you're doing. So wonderful job. Congratulations to everybody who just hit their 1,000th workout. And I know we have a few more that are almost there, and I look forward to seeing you pop in so we can congratulate you.
You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Well, ahoy there, everyone. Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. We are your co-hosts for today. I'm CJ Gotcher. This is Niki Sims.
Hello, everybody.
And we will be talking about something really important to coaches of all stripes, whether you're just starting this or you've been doing this for 20 years. And that's, where is this field going? Where is coaching going in 20 years? So yeah. This one should be fun.
Yeah. I mean, if we think about just all the technological advancements that have occurred in the last 10 years, I can literally only imagine what is possible in 20 years for coaching. Who freaking knows what's going to be going on? Maybe we'll have holograms of The Rock to work out with. Like, how fun would that be?
That would now. Okay. That's too fun. And anyway, my former Star Trek geek, like the holodeck and all that just comes to mind. But I guess one way, and we had talked about this a little bit, because how do you cover kind of a topic like this, is taking a look. What did fitness, what did coaching look like even 20 years ago? If we're going to talk about 20 years from now, it's like, wait a minute, and we can talk, maybe things are accelerating or not, but what did it look like even 20 years ago? And so back in the day, back in 2003, I was still sporting uniform coordinates in high school. Man, that was the day. Like, what did coaching look like compared to today?
It's definitely, well, I'm thinking about just what we were doing 20 years ago. I think we were about the same age. So we were in school. So still a lot of coaching in the academic, athletic environments. And in terms of fitness, it was going to like the local Globo gym where there were personal trainers. And then there were also group fitness classes. And prior to that, I had grown up like going to jazzercise with my mom, which was ridiculously fun. So it's kind of like that personal trainer, academia, and kind of group fitness.
I remember you mentioned that, like, and there are those kind of discrete categories. I remember feeling that very much. Like, I didn't really know what was going on in fitness. I didn't really have a concept. Like, CrossFit was technically, the website existed in 2001, but I never would have known how to find it in my little high school where nobody was doing it. And you mentioned the Globo Gym thing. I was looking to get to the Naval Academy, and I had kind of that stereotypical personal trainer experience. You walk up to the front door of I think it was a Gold's, I think, and the front desk, and they're like, okay, I'm looking for a personal trainer. And they're like, I have one just for you. He specializes in military fitness. And, you go through the questionnaire, and then the guy puts you through the same circuit that he always does, a couple of machines, one dumbbell lift, and then like a push-up, sit-up kind of circuit, because that's what customized it for the military. And then we did that exact same thing for 2 sessions a week until the session packet ran out. And, my dad and I are sitting there like, well, I kind of know what to do now. Like, I don't need him anymore.
Yeah.
And that was, but as far as we knew, that's all there was to fitness. Like we could go to Men's Health maybe, but then again, all you're doing is picking up a different template, like the magazine Men's Health, or there wasn't that sort of deep knowledge base that we have nowadays.
Mm-hmm. And that, I think that's really been encouraged by how much more easily we're able to share information online and through podcasts. Like the overwhelming amount of information and knowledge sharing going on right now is incredible compared to how it used to be, where you would have to like find old training journals of the Bulgarians, like figure out what the Olympic athletes were doing. And like you said, men's health. And now you can, Google, what type of lunge is best for XYZ and get like, 35 different answers. And so I think it's really changed the amount of authority, I would say, that a coach feels like they can have now in terms of their ability to, help someone. I think that's really different.
There's that 2-level piece, because you pointed out, and I think this is so interesting. Like a lot of the big names in the field back in that day, they were plugged into the resources coming from Dr. Michael Yessis translating the Russian texts and all these different works like Stone and Garhammer on periodization. Like if you were in the academic side of things or the professional side of things, you demonstrated you were in the know by these resources that you had access to, and maybe you were even trying to develop yourself. Like you were the one writing the books or translating the books or interpreting the books. And nowadays, everyone has that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can, and I have, Yesis's translations of Verkhoshansky's texts and Zatsiorsky's work. It was easy to get. It was like $20, on Amazon. Like that is so accessible to us now in a way that there's not that same split between the expert and you. The average Joe or the new coach.
Mm-hmm. The student or the trainee who just kind of walks in, they're like, I don't know anything about this. Please help me. And they're able to be, there's that huge knowledge gap. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Well, when you talk about today, I mean, you make a point that our students come to that too. I've found even in the last to like 5 to 10 years, not even going back to, 20 years ago, that a lot more people come in knowing what they want. Or knowing at least what's out there. Like that what used to be a niche, like you were a weirdo if you were doing CrossFit in 2003. I went to the Naval Academy to like 2005, 2006 was my first year. And like CrossFit was still this like brand new thing. It was just starting to really pick up. And like people are like, and nowadays people, they have subcategories of barbell training that, they have opinions on. And they walk in on the front door from day one, like, which school of thought do you follow?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's new. Like customers are well informed enough to have, or misinformed, either way, to redefine or define themselves into niches already.
Yeah. And I wonder, I don't have a firm answer on this, but I wonder how many more people are exercising and training now than was the case 20 years ago. Was it? Well, I guess if we reference the historical film Anchorman, most people were just getting into jogging in the 70s. Was it just more people were running, and then more people got into gyms, and now there are fitness studios, Orange Theories, like more actual gyms where people can go and start participating in training. Like I wonder if just the amount of people that are interested in exercise has improved, and now our ability to record what that's doing to people has changed too. Like we can track so much data now, and I can only imagine what that's gonna lead to in terms of the amount of information we're able to gather on like what leads to what health improvements can occur because of this, what actually works for strength training, and how that's going to guide the direction of new apps, new businesses, anything. I don't know. What do you think about all the information that we're able to gather now?
I think we've got two pieces to that. There's all the information we didn't have before, that was not being measured, but was still driving change. So you mentioned, jogging was relatively, uncommon, and the modern fitness industry has grown exponentially since the 90s, early 2000s in the boutique studios and that kind of thing. But activity levels were higher. in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we know that. We have some measurement of aerobic fitness in the general population, for instance, and step counts and activity levels with the tools that they had back then, which weren't as accurate as we have now, people were still more active. So we have a combination of, we are just becoming accurately aware of a declining trend in the general population, which is driving more people to exercise, or at least, the people who can afford it, the people who have access. And we have more people and more research coming out about the benefits of exercise and more subgroups, like the benefits of HIIT versus, MICT, the benefits of, the injury rates of CrossFit versus weightlifting. And, these things are bouncing into the space now in a way that in some ways it's an overwhelm of information, but also it at least lets people know that, I can resist this trend towards sitting in my chair by getting up and picking up a barbell, by any one of a number of things.
And how do you think that's going to look in a few years, in 5, 10, 20 years?
So it's an interesting piece. Right now, people complain about the accuracy of some of these technologies, whether it's, for instance, sleep phases, your Fitbit or, your Garmin, like I have, they're not accurate in terms of sleep phases. They're just not. Sleep quality, that kind of thing. Heart rate is relatively accurate. HRV on some of these things is moderate. Some of them are better than others, but that's going to get fixed. Those kind of tactical challenges. There's already, so I was just reading it earlier this morning, Rothschilds et al. 2022. It's a preprint where they took 55 endurance athletes. They were doing at least 7 hours a week of training, and collected as much as they could. MyFitnessPal, sleep data from a watch, And they're using machine learning to try to estimate what are the most important factors for readiness and performance, and so how would you generate a recommendation from that? What is the most accurate readiness score? And the initial finding is they're not really that good yet. That none of the factors were terribly high percentage accuracy. None of them there were high inter-individual variability in terms of how they responded to each of these factors. But that will get better.
Yeah.
And when we have more than 55 people, when we have 1,000 people, and they're all connected because whether we like it or not, our Alexas are talking to our MyFitnessPals, are talking to our Garmins and our Fitbits. And, next thing you know, I would be willing to bet within 10 years, the average customer can buy a subscription service where what you have in your pantry is known to your app. What you eat is known to your app. How you sleep, how your activity level is each day. And your app can tell you each day, if you want it to, eat this for breakfast.
Yeah.
Eat this for lunch, eat this for dinner. This is how much, this is how to program for your goal based on how many hours you should run or that kind of thing. That will be available. I would say, I would guess 10 years at 10 years. And if I'm being super pessimistic, within 20 years, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine we're pretty damn close to that. Like the ability now I've heard there's a lot of new science coming out on even just like what's going on with gut health and how little changes can affect how you're processing nutrients and change genetic expression. And that's getting more and more refined, along with how we're going to be able to track. And it makes me really curious. And I think this is where coaching really fits into it, is even if someone has all the information to be a super bionic human, not everybody is going to take advantage of it. So I think that's where coaches come in for like the human element of, holding them accountable and being like, people will have an organ transplant and not take their meds. Like that's when like really on the line. And so even if people have like all the recipes and the tools that they need to look how they want to look and feel how they want to feel, they might not always take it. And I wonder if that's where coaches are going to really play a bigger part.
The biggest, so there are a couple trends that I'm seeing and a couple of things that I'm seeing kind of 10, 20 years in the future. The biggest two trends I personally think is what you're saying there, which is an inversion of the coaching role. So many coaches are like, I'm not the compliance guy. I'm not going to babysit them. I'm not going to mommy them. If they're not going to take their creatine, if they're not going to come show up for working out, then, what do they need for? I'm here to prescribe the exercises. I'm here to pick out the macros. I'm here to tell them what they need to do. They just need to get off their ass and do it. And that coach, in my opinion, will be destroyed. They're gone. Mm-hmm. Because not only can a machine do it for a lot cheaper than them in 10, 15, 20 years, but probably better. Because a lot of their biases, a lot of their intuitions are just wrong, based on an experience with a specific subset of the population, based on personal bias. The machines will do it better. And where the coach can actually outperform the machine is in that personal connection, in not just like standing over you and like, ping, ping, did you take your pills today? Because machines can do that too. Like machines can be built in with automated reminders and those kind of systems. But helping the client elicit, what is your deeper why? Like, okay, yeah, your app can tell you, how much sleep you need. But what kind of meaning and purpose and values do you care about enough to care about getting to sleep at 9 o'clock so that you can wake up at 5 and get your training done? Like the coach who can help elicit those values, elicit a cause worth training for so that someone does the prescription, and a coach who can help, like there will be multiple competing apps, multiple competing models and solutions. The coach who can listen to a client's goals and say, okay, yeah, we need to get you on this path with this app and this training sequence. So you're going to have to collect this data, and I'm here to help you along the way. So kind of that steward of people who will otherwise be overwhelmed by the 20 different neural network powered AI, solutions for the prescriptions that they need.
Yeah, they're still going to need to connect with what's important to them, with a community probably. And like you said, someone who can help them sift through all the information. You can get a report of every bodily function, but what does that mean? Which one's important to you? Which one should be important? So what do you think that looks like for the business? Like, what is the fitness industry maybe going to start looking like and being led by?
It's kind of funny. Like we talked about this a little bit in advance, and I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm saying this is what I'm seeing happening, and I see this trend continuing. So as I look ahead and try to extrapolate on this trend, I see it getting worse. And that's the splitting of coaches between two models, between the high ticket and the low middle ticket. Like people these are kind of business coaching, business guru terms, but we see high ticket coaches selling $3,000 plus packages for 3-month transformations. You're selling a transformation, not a service. You're selling on a preset thing. It's incredibly high touch, or at least it's sold that way. And it's because of that, it's generally sold to people who can afford to spend $1,000 a month, or whatever that may be, on coaching for a specific goal. And I have my issues with that, but like that model is not only, I think, going to continue, but it's going to be accelerated and advanced by the technologies. Being able to say, I have access to this particular tool, the coach will become kind of either a niche dominator, like they're going to go in and I help ultra endurance athletes. Because this is the specialty that the AIs aren't quite there yet. So you need a coach to help fine tune the results because there aren't enough sample data, for the technology to align with. Or you'll see what we're already starting to see, which is like this full spectrum life coach, health coach, wellness guru, spiritualist who, will get you your shrooms for spiritual advancement, your strength, and your help you manage your personal calendar. They're almost like a high ticket personal assistant. And all that is going to be aided by the new technologies that they essentially ride on top of to enable them to provide this like super custom service. And then on the other side of things, I see, and this is on a general assumption that most general health is not hard. We can already meet the general health of most people with not much exercise. I mean, the minimums are 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity and 2 days a week of resistance training and we already see massive drop-offs in mortality and, a lot of the symptoms of metabolic syndrome just from hitting that. So the coach then isn't doing for the general population a massive benefit by adding in all these tight prescriptions and fine nuances and things. So the technology for them to keep the price low where most people can afford to pay, the technology is going to spread. So they'll use it to provide personal connection and troubleshooting to 300 people instead of 20 people. I think I actually shot this idea out. I was kind of throwing the idea around on Twitter that we're already seeing companies do this, that are already managing macros prescriptions or programming prescriptions, and the coach kind of rides on top of that. And I mentioned Precision Nutrition because their ProCoach software essentially uses a series of predetermined lessons, and then which has a lot of automation already built in. So Dr. John Berardi, who used to own Precision Nutrition, he said in an interview, like our PN super coaches, their coaches can work with 250, 300 people at a time. And so many people were like, what? How can you provide personalized service? And I saw a lot of individual clients coming out and saying, I felt pretty personalized.
Wow.
It met my needs.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach, I actually really only needed my coach like 4 or 5 times throughout the year. And they would shoot little cool messages and feedback, and they would notice when I was starting to slip off and reach in. So the software was allowing them to expand their reach to more people and pinging them or somehow providing, dashboard details so they could go like, I need to reach in now, to keep their hours at a manageable level and spread reach. I think that is going to grow both technologically and in the market.
We can recognize which patterns equal success and which deviations need intervention on a larger level. Yeah.
We already see that compared to, so we used to use, another software for managing and tracking and programming people, here at Block. When we moved to doing things our own way, all of a sudden PRs are automatically tracked, weekly volumes automatically tracked. There's a lot of things that took off my plate personally that have saved me hours, a week in manually inputting people's PRs and things to keep track of. And that expands how many people I can serve. So add in the number of tools to make that available. All of a sudden, you improve the coach's reach, the coach's access, and the number of people who can reach a coach.
So,
blah, that was a dated blah.
Liked it.
I told you I can get ranty on this. I love this one.
Yeah. I'm really curious about it from like the business in terms of who's going to be running business, the size of businesses. Like I really foresee corporations just acquiring and acquiring, or a corporation just acquiring and acquiring and acquiring so that they can make a larger fitness brand that can just be like mass reach. Like someone's going to acquire MyFitnessPal again. Someone's going to acquire, Lifetime Fitness and put those together. And so you can walk into a gym and it knows what you've eaten and it has like food in the fridge for what you need. And then they're going to acquire an online version of it. And it's going to be a brand like a Starbucks level of recognition that anybody can kind of sign up for and customize, where anywhere you live in the country, it's like that consistent. And I think it's going to start to be that big global entity. I think that's for sure coming.
I think this is I totally agree with you there. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm not sure I like this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to live in the world where that's the thing, but I do see it happening.
For sure.
And I see that being where coaches get drowned out if they're not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
because that will become like the water is rising, so to speak. And when that becomes the baseline, when people don't need you for menu recommendations, for macro plans, for all those different things, and when, it'll start, ironically, coaches, we will pull ourselves out of the business because a coach is going to use APIs to link different apps. Like there are already recipe apps that will track what's in your pantry. You manually input it and then will recommend meals that you can make with recipes built in.
So cool.
Somebody is going to connect that to Amazon's Alexa, and all your food purchases come through Alexa. And then now you have that link, Amazon buys them out. Every coach who does a pantry, like a pantry overhaul as part of their business model that's gone, because whatever the subscription service is, that's going to meet that need. So coaches will have to stay one step ahead, either coming up with a different service or riding on top of that. Okay, now you know what food, now you know what you're going to have to cook today, but you haven't cooked like ever. You've been a suburbanite, you've been raised in technoland and, white collar tech jobs. And the recipe thing says, all right, this is the meal you need to make today. And you're just like, ugh.
And that's
so
when
that
they
becomes the
incorporate
coach's role.
HelloFresh or Blue
Right?
Plate or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. There are so many small businesses, or smaller, that have actually, I think, become quite large, that are answering those needs. Like, business is about solving a problem for people, making things easier for them to do. So we don't even know what the needs are going to be in 10 years when all of these different problems are solved. But I'm sure there are going to be some that will always reveal themselves. Those will always reveal themselves. And humans are just, I'd like to think, on a large sense, curious and adaptable.
You make a great point that there will always be problems to solve. And the question is, are you solving yesterday's problems or tomorrow's problems and today's problems? I think the trainer that I worked with 20 years ago, who, put me through a not terribly useful, overpriced program for what he was actually providing, he was just doing what was normal for the time. But he was solving a problem that was easy to solve. Access to information and access to equipment. He was solving a problem that today in 2023 no longer exists. Not really. I could have come up with a better I could go onto a template online and come up with a better program than was prescribed at the time. And there's so much of a market for gyms now. So the coaches, the personal trainers of then are already drowned. And we've seen wages for personal trainers at Globo gyms who are providing that same service worsen. So all of a sudden, personal trainers, we see this marketing push. You got to niche down. You've got to do this. You've got to do that in order to stay ahead. And so when you talk about solving problems, a lot of it, the coach needs to go, wait a minute. Does this problem need solving? Am I making up a problem to solve? Because when budgets get tight and when, technology improves, people won't use me to solve that problem, or they'll pay me less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interestingly in a jiu-jitsu class this morning, you and I were talking about this, but it was neat because they brought over a professor from another school. And I think just as recent as 5 years ago, these two schools were competitive. Like, they didn't like each other. They were against each other. And something happened during COVID where they were like, hey, you know what? I think we should all start exchanging information differently. And they started doing guest seminars. And it really switched to, now he just came to our studio, gave this wonderful presentation. He's one of the best jiu-jitsu players in the world. And he runs an amazing team. And he just taught us. And it was this really amazing shift that I even recognized that started to occur, I think, in the last couple of years, of just, you know what? There is an abundance of information out there. There is an abundance of different people finding ways to coach, and now we can start sharing it. And I think it's like, in a cool way right now, it's like interestingly less competitive, and it allows you to become something that you've talked about, I think, really well, who you are, like, what are your values? How can you be loud with those values, instead of like, how can I be better than, the best coach right now. Like you have the ability to absorb information, deliver it in a way that brings you value and allows you to connect with the people who you want to connect with, because that's always going to be the case. People are going to be motivated differently. They're going to respond to your history. And I think it almost just keeps reinforcing the importance of understanding your VIP and being able to communicate that.
I really actually like your BJJ metaphor for this, and like kind of a signal of this, because I see the same time, it's the same thing in virtually every, like, as communities evolve, they tend to split and merge, would be kind of one way to frame it. I'm seeing a lot of people in the nutrition community where more and more and more the idea that you have to do things a certain way is kind of fading a little bit within what we would call the mainstream. People like Dr. Stuart Phillips recently has been talking a lot more about vegetable proteins and plant proteins, and the fact that the research just doesn't support. There's more work that you have to do in your life planning, but when proteins are matched gram for gram, he's like, you can make it work. You can make it work effectively for strength training, for resistance training, for hypertrophy. And a lot of different people who used to be just in the vegan camp, just in the so-and-so, are starting to come into this center position of vegan works for you for these reasons, so I'm here to support you. But I'm also in this network of other professionals in case, for some reason it doesn't work for you, and I can push off. We all kind of realize that, it's more about the VIP of the individual than the hard truth. Of course, we also, and I think this continues as well, as many times like in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as all these different schools try to prove my school is best, they start realizing, people with these different leverages, people with this different experience, people, who are competing in these different federations or leagues in MMA with different rules, all of a sudden things change a little bit. We gotta move around. You also find, in some ways, push more and more to the fringes, but also therefore establishing a deep fringe user base, the hardcore carnivores, the evangelical vegans, and that trend will continue as well.
For sure. Yeah. Because people will succeed by being different and like with the volume really turned up on what makes them different. That is going to appeal to a subgroup of people. And sometimes as a coach, you only need 35 people to be like, I want to work out and only wear the color purple and only eat fruits that are purple. And I want to be successful. And there will be someone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, so this is one of those things where I hesitate. The concept, what's the future of coaching? I like to separate that from, is it good or is it bad? It's what it is. Because the ability to cater to someone's VIP, to help them express themselves and find a model that works for their physiology, which is mostly the same as other people, but has individual differences and their personality and their lifestyle needs, all those different things. I personally connect with that a lot. So I see a lot of potential for, the collaboration of AI platforms for tech and humans, kind of the centaur sort of model of things. But I also see just as much that alternate opinion, not just, I only want to go to the gym wearing purple clothes, lifting, kettlebells, like not just that, but anyone who doesn't go to the gym, who doesn't wear purple clothes, who doesn't lift kettlebells is wrong. Like, and I expect that to blow up just as well. So as much as I see an optimistic future, I'm not a techno optimist. I don't expect that it's going to be good for everyone.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because there are humans involved. As much AI is going to come into it, it's going to be humans and emotions. Yeah. Well, I think an interesting question to finish on, I want to come back to something you said is, am I solving the problems of tomorrow? That's what you said earlier. What do you think a good kind of jumping off for coaches to kind of guide them through that answer would be?
Well, going back to VIP, am I solving the problems that I want to solve?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a a framework where you can find a problem to solve, you can become successful solving it, and end up really unhappy with having made that change in the world. You can end up unhappy with or regretful that, you didn't actually commit to a different direction. So the first thing I would say is find the problems that you want to solve, the things that you actually personally connect to, because it kind of always comes back to that. The other piece I would go is, okay, where my current resources and assets at to solve that problem, to help kind of define the category that you're at. Are you the coach who is going to help find the algorithms and the proper, the training structures for powerlifters, for endurance athletes, for the military? Is that going to be you? Are you great at establishing a social media following and that kind of thing? Are you going to become a brand ambassador for one of these technologies that becomes a competing brand? Do you want to work with people in low-income communities, or people with injuries, or who don't have access to the tech, or who don't it's not going to be able to solve their problem for many years down the line? If you want to work with type 1 diabetics in Tour de France style cycling, like that level of intensity, that's an edge case. And you are safe from AI for quite some time. Do you want to work like local in your community? You said it. People will always exist. And gyms have never just been about programming and prescription. They've been about people and community and finding a third place. So are you the person who's going to create that third place to connect people locally, which kind of resists? It's kind of going upstream from the trend of everything. So that would be where I would start, is what problems, where in the world do you want to solve? Would you be happy with? Where are you positioned right now? Like in those directions, where are you already leaning towards? Where do you already have a slight edge? And then start working down that path.
And then what you can do is be adaptable as changes occur over time. Like you'll have kind of your anchor that has that consistent thread of what's important to you. And you'll start to, just develop hours and then months and then years and years and years of knowledge and practice that will even just reinforce that as things start to change. Yeah.
It's really interesting too, at least to me, because I can see sometimes in Barbell Logic and the staff and the different personalities and things, where some of these coaches, like some of our coworkers, our peers, like are naturally sort of inclined to. We're seeing in velocity-based training, for instance, some people are experimenting with that, are already using that in their training. That is a tool to help refine, will be to help refine algorithms and refine technologies. There are people like you who have the personality to get in there and help people elicit meaning and, find the thing that they care about. That kind of a change agent, there's the role for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's neat. Wonderful. Well, did you get all your rants out?
I told you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got all my rants out. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm actually really grateful that we get to be part of like wherever coaching is going, like, and that it has a human component. So I'm excited to see what people get curious about and what they dig into and what they learn and what they bring to the table, because there's always a new study out there that proves or disproves something, and then we just adapt and see what we can do with that information. It's pretty neat to just be ready to absorb.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for leading this discussion, CJ. Is there anything else you wanted to close on?
No, that is primarily it. I love the way you phrase that. And it's just, there's all the predictions. There's all the things that we're doing now. The only way to know is to live it, is to, like 10 years from now, hopefully you and I are sitting here or doing our coaching thing, and we can look back on this podcast, and our viewers can look back on this podcast in 10 years and be like, how right were they?
We'll find out. Wrong. Yeah, we'll find out. Okay with being wrong. I love it. Well, thanks everybody for listening. And I hope if you enjoyed this, you'll hop on and give us a 5-star rating to encourage others to see the podcast and get some listens in. And I guess we'll see you next time. Thank you, CJ, for leading that.
See you next time. Thank
Awesome.
you.